Imagine it's your freshman year of high school and you're getting ready for school one morning when you start to feel a little bit weird. So you go and you take a nap in a chair and you wake up to the horrified faces of your family telling you that they've just called an ambulance. Well, I don't have to imagine. Hello, my name is Stanzi Potenza and welcome back to my channel. They say seize the day. Well, some of us took that a little too literally, it would seem. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I have talked about having epilepsy before on podcasts. I've talked about it on my own page. I've definitely made content about it before, but I've never really given the full sort of deep dive. It's been 15 years since I started having seizures, and I was already planning on making this video, and it's almost as if the universe could tell that I was about to make a video like this and gave me some material to work with because I just had a seizure this past Monday. For reference, it is May 30th? Yes, it is Friday, May 30th. I just had a seizure this past Monday, which was Memorial Day. I'm fine. I have some minor scrapes and bruises on this arm and my knee. This was the first seizure that I've had in 2 years, which is kind of a bummer, but you know, it's bound to happen. Sometimes you get complacent in your own treatment. I think that's kind of what happened to me. I haven't really been taking care of myself like I should recently. I've been very stressed out. I haven't been sleeping very much, which is horrible for my health. And I sort of felt like maybe something like this was coming. There are things that I could have done to prevent this potentially, but who really knows? This might have happened even if I had been taking the best care of myself. But anyway, I figured I would kind of tell you a little bit about what happened on Monday, and then I will go back to the beginning. It was, one of these days where I wasn't sleeping very well, and that is my biggest trigger for seizures. A lot of people think that epilepsy is a strobe light disorder, which would be terrible for me because I love going to the clubs and staring at flashing lights. So that's, not a trigger for me, but sleep deprivation is, and that is unfortunately something I'm very familiar with as well. So I was not getting enough sleep for a while now, but it was one of these days where I just really did not go to bed. And so around like 6 or 7 in the morning, I decided that I was just kind of ready to start the day and I was gonna get some cleaning done. I was just cleaning my kitchen, listening to music. I was eating an apple, and then I started to feel weird. I started to feel what is known as an aura. So I started to feel the seizure coming on. I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. Sometimes I try to fight them off. I'm like, if I can just concentrate really hard, it will go away. And sometimes it does go away. I don't know if it's because of me, but talking to myself sometimes helps. I felt it coming on, and the last time I had a seizure, I was also alone. And I fell off my bed and I hit my head and I couldn't get up in the morning. I didn't want to hit my head again. I was afraid of, the worst case scenario, basically. So I was like, maybe I should try to find someone to help me get through this. Memorial Day weekend, 7 in the morning, no one's awake right now. But I'm just kind of yelling out of my apartment door, being like, hello? Is anyone there? They were not. And so, I don't really remember much of what happened after that. The next thing I knew, I was in my apartment complex's garage, with no shoes on. And I was kind of in and out of consciousness, I think. I definitely remember moments of struggling to stand up and stumbling, but I don't know the severity of what happened to me. I'm not sure if I fully passed out and had convulsions somewhere on the pavement, or if maybe I just stumbled down and fell to one knee and hit my elbow too. It's sort of weird trying to put the pieces together. Theoretically, I could ask to see security footage, but you know what? I really don't want to. That's super embarrassing because not only was I wearing no shoes, I was also only wearing a long t-shirt and no bra. I was wearing a long t-shirt, no shoes, no bra. My hair looked insane. Don't really need to see all of that hanging about. And I'm sure I was just like, I looked like I wasn't supposed to be there, probably. Especially because in the aftermath of it, after the seizure is over, you enter this other phase called post-ictal. That, to me, is the worst part of it. The convulsions, I'm not even conscious for. Post-ictal is sort of like your brain goes into reboot. It's a very heightened emotional state. It's for me at least, full of paranoia. So I was in the elevator, one of the elevators of my building, trying to get back to my apartment, but I had also forgotten my key. So I couldn't access the upper levels of my building. So I just went to the front of my complex. I was still inside the building, but I couldn't get back to my apartment. So I'm just kind of standing there, long t-shirt, no shoes. Thankfully, a lady from the cleaning staff at my building had just arrived to the building, so I didn't have to stand there for long. I was standing there like this, and then she walks in. I'm just like, "Hi, I just had a seizure. Can you bring me to my apartment?"
What happened to hello? How are you? My name is.
Thank God she had all access, but she got me back to my apartment. And I was fine. I slept for 3 days. I was pretty much out from the rest of Monday to Thursday, and today is the first day that I woke up at a relatively reasonable hour. And that's only because I had agreed to record an episode of a podcast with a friend of mine named Greg Grunberg, who has a podcast about acting in epilepsy, which is my bread and butter. I've done a few things this week. This is probably the most thing I'm going to be doing this week. I'm still sore in certain places, my ankles are really sore. Maybe it was because I was fucking scurrying around my apartment complex in the garage with no shoes on. I also bit my tongue, which is kind of a typical thing that happens when people have seizures. Incident that happened this week, it wasn't I've dealt with a lot worse, which is part of the reason why I thought maybe I didn't even have a full-blown convulsion episode. Who's to say? No one knows. No one saw it except for me. Unless someone did and they're a bystander. Boo! Boo! But again, yeah, this isn't foreign to me. I've been dealing with this for half my life, so I figured I would just kind of talk about how it started and how we got to where I am today. Just 1 month after my 15th birthday, I was visited by God, who said, "Stanzi, you're getting way too hot." And I said, "That's a weird thing to say to me because I'm a minor." And he said, "No one will ever believe you." And then he gave me epilepsy. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I was getting ready for school one morning. I was class president. And I was getting ready for Spirit Week or some shit. I felt pretty normal. I was tired because back in the day, I used to wake up at 4 fucking o'clock in the morning to get ready for school so I could straighten my hair like a psychopath. Because back in the day, it was important to have really straight hair. As straight as humanly possible. And so I would wake up at 4 in the morning and go layer by layer. And so I was getting ready for school, and the last thing I remember was I was putting on pants, and then I sat down in a chair because I felt tired. The next thing I knew, I woke up in that chair, and I was surrounded by my mom and 2 of my sisters. I'm looking at them they're staring at me, their eyes are crazy, they have crazy eyes. They look very concerned, and I'm confused. I'm looking at them, I'm what? And my mom is we called an ambulance, and I'm I'm sorry, what? From my perspective, I was tired, I took a nap, and I woke up to an ambulance being called on me. I was very confused. So yeah, my mom's like, we called an ambulance, and I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she goes, this is the third time we've had this conversation. So I'm like, no, this is strange. I'm trying to get more answers. I'm very confused. And then here come the fucking EMTs walking into my house. And so I'm just in this chair surrounded by people, very confused. And they start asking me a bunch of questions. They're asking me what my name is, what the date is, what day of the week it is, what month it is, when's my birthday. They're asking me all these questions, and I'm like responding to them, like giving them whatever answers, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was getting all of them wrong. Questions that one should know. The only question I got right, which I yelled at them, was, who's the president of the United States? And I said, Obama, because I'm not gonna forget the first black president, Mr. EMT. They're like, sneaky one. We thought we were gonna get her. Like if I got it wrong and I still said, I was like, I don't know, Bush? They were gonna be like, she doesn't recognize the first black president because she's racist. Get the cameras on her. Boo, get the cameras on her. We got you on camera. You sick son of a bitch. Not on my watch, motherfucker. I might have just had a seizure for the first time in my life and I don't even know it yet, but you're not gonna get me, bitch. So anywho, aside from the fact that I had gotten those questions wrong, the EMTs are actually looking at me like, she seems fine. But my family is obviously like, no. Because my older sister who found me was like, she was slumped over in the chair and there was just a puddle of drool like next to her and she was foaming at the mouth, which, I admit, not super normal. You wouldn't get it. It's just girl things. It's just like a normal girl thing to foam at the mouth. Ladies, who likes foaming at the mouth? So, my mom insists that they take me in, which, you're gonna realize throughout this story that my mom is like MVP. She is the GOAT. She has like always been like a ride or die. She loves her kids and she's gonna make sure that they get taken care of. And then when they got me in the ambulance, they started to take my blood pressure and they were monitoring my heart rate, and they were both like through the roof, and they were like, this isn't like normal. Also, I've mentioned this before, but there's just something about walking into an ambulance that's like deeply embarrassing. If you have the capacity to walk into the ambulance, it's almost like I feel like I don't need to be there. And I'm not saying that's how you should handle ambulances. It's just like me personally, anytime I have gotten into an ambulance, I have been able to walk into that ambulance, or at least I have felt like I could have walked into the ambulance. I haven't walked into, I've been in several ambulances, at least 3, maybe 4, but I think at least 3 times I've been in an ambulance. But I've talked about this before, like make an Uber service that's like somewhere in between Uber and an actual ambulance. 1, because ambulances are so expensive. 2, because it's just a little embarrassing, especially when they bring the whole fucking team, because sometimes they do. I'm like, I don't know why we need a goddamn show right now. I'm like, oh, you brought the big 3, the EMTs, the cops, and the firefighters? First of all, like, what are the firefighters gonna do besides stand there and look pretty? I know you do good work, boys, but for mommy's little seizure, I'm just disoriented, like, that guy's hot as fuck. So me, my mom, and the EMTs are chilling in the back of this ambulance. Now I'm 15 at the time, so I'm like, Mom, you gotta take a photo of me in the back of this ambulance. This is a big deal. Plus, like, I was going through a lot of drama in my life at that moment, and when like, when you're going through like drama in your life and then something bad happens to you and then you're like, oh my god, I Everyone's gonna feel bad for me. That was like one of those moments. We've all been there. My mom's trying to get like a good photo of me in the back of this ambulance. Also, at this point in my life, I still had like a flip phone. It was like 2011. So the quality's not great. So we had to, you know, really work to get our shot. The EMTs called to the driver in the front. They're like, hey, can you slow down just a little bit? They're trying to get a shot. And I really appreciate that because like in that moment, they understood the assignment. And some of you might be thinking like, this is like a little unprofessional of them. But something we came to learn later on, maybe after like the third seizure, is that there's not a whole lot that medical professionals can do for you after you've had a seizure. Like once it's already happened, it's done. But anyway, we get to the hospital. I'm chilling there for a while. They're doing like blood work. They're kind of like testing me. They come to the conclusion at some point that I had a seizure, but honestly, kind of a great day for me. I get a day off from school. I'm not having a great time at school at that point. My mom gets me Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, this is great. I got my hot chocolate and munchkins. I'm there all day. So later on, I get KFC, best day of my life. You know, they are like, we're gonna have to do some more tests, but right now, like, you're good to go. We're like, okay, so I go home and I'm mostly fine. I go back to school, I tell people like what happened. I don't really have all of the details of what's going on with me yet. There are like two options that are floating around, which is like you could have a brain tumor or you could have epilepsy. I had to take like a decent chunk of time like out of especially the beginning of the school year to like go to the hospital and get all these tests done. I had to get blood work done. I had to go and meet with my neurologist. I had to get an MRI. I had to get a CAT scan. I had to get an EEG. The CAT scan and the MRI was to check my brain to see if I had like brain tumors. And thankfully I did not. And then I had to get an EEG, which stands for electroencephalogram, and that is to test my brain waves and to see if they were abnormal. And so we got that done. The test is essentially it kind of sucks. You'll kind of understand the extent of how sucky EEGs can get as I like continue the story, but they sleep deprive you. They have to sleep deprive you. I wasn't allowed to go to bed until midnight. And then she woke me up around 4 a.m. And then we went to the hospital together, and they basically glue these wires and electrodes to your head. It looks very silly. And then they try to make you go to sleep while you're covered in electrodes and they are flashing lights in your face in a dark room. The first few that I got were like that. So they did that, and afterwards you go home, they look over the scans, and we met with a neurologist, however, many days or weeks after that, and they didn't tell me I had epilepsy, but they did say that I had a seizure disorder. They said that my brain waves were abnormal. My mom started to cry. I'm kind of just like taking it all in. I'm like, okay. And then after that, nothing happened for like a year and a half. And so I just kind of like went about my life. It was probably like May of my junior year of high school. I was in a show. I grew up doing community theater, so I was doing a musical, and we were doing this fundraiser. We were like singing for like this gala thing that we had been doing to raise money for it. I was out late the next day. I wake up and getting ready for school, and I feel kind of weird. I feel strange, and it wasn't like the first time I had a seizure because I don't really remember anything that happened the first time. This time I was like, I feel odd. I was having an aura. I didn't know it at the time. Before I forget, I want to talk about some of the terms that I've been throwing around. The first one is aura. An aura is a seizure that hasn't generalized to the rest of your brain yet. So it is still technically a seizure, but it is like a warning. So if someone's experiencing an aura, that is a good indicator that they are about to have a grand mal seizure or a tonic-clonic seizure where they will lose consciousness and start convulsing. If I was a smart person, during the aura that I had this week, instead of fleeing to the parking garage of my building with no shoes on, I would have just like laid down on a rug or something so that I didn't fall or hurt myself. Auras can be accompanied by things like tunnel vision. It's a very like bizarre experience to kind of try to explain. When I have mine, the first thing that happens is usually I get like racing thoughts. So it's almost like I'll start to think of something and I'm like, it's like something that's on the tip of my tongue and I can't quite get it. And then that like forms into another thing that I'm trying to think of, into another thing that I'm trying to think of, and then there are a million things that I'm trying to think of, and then all of a sudden it kind of like bubbles over and I'll start to get tunnel vision. I'll also, something that did happen, it's happened a couple of times, it definitely happened this past seizure that I had. I start to see like rainbow out of one of my eyes. I will stop understanding language. I'm not going to understand anything that you're trying to say to me, and you're not going to understand anything that I am trying to say to you. I was with an ex once and I started to have an aura in front of him, and I was trying to explain to him like, I just need to like keep talking and I might be able to kind of like talk myself down from this. When I asked him afterwards like what I was saying to him, he said that I was saying the numbers 1 and 2 in like various formations, just like at him. I was just saying the numbers 1, 2, like 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2. Couldn't tell ya. I had a seizure. Still don't like super remember like how it went. You know, I felt strange. I felt like, I think a little bit of the paranoia. I called an ambulance. I went back to the hospital because it happened a second time. We kind of went through a lot of the same stuff that we had gone through the first time around. You know, we didn't like my first neurologist that we had. We got a new guy. He looked just like the old man from the Six Flags commercials. He had like the bow tie and everything. But we started to do some like more tests, and you know, again, I have abnormal brainwaves. And it was at this point in my life where I started to experiment with taking medications. And if you've ever experimented with medications, you know that sometimes it sucks. Yeah, it just fucking sucks. Because medication, it can make you feel like a lab rat a little bit, especially when they don't fully know like what's going on with you. Because if, in case you don't know, like there are different types of seizure disorders in the world. There are different types of seizures. There's different types of epilepsy. It can affect different parts of the brain. People have different triggers. It's like not a one size fits all disorder. Like not all seizures are epileptic. You know, people have non-epileptic seizures. That's why they were looking for like brain tumors. There's like lots of different things to look into. So I think that's why it took them so long to be like, yeah, you have epilepsy, because like they just didn't fully know, they weren't getting enough information. So I was just like trying medications, and yeah, like the first medication that I was on, I didn't love the way that it made me feel. Didn't have a good time on it. Not I. In my junior year of high school, I had my third seizure. I think after my second seizure, I start having them about every 6 months. So I could kind of like time it out. At that point, like we had actually stopped taking the ambulance in. Once you have it, it's kind of like, yeah, like it's over. Eventually they would just like, you know, when I kept going in, like all they would do is give me like ginger ale and saltines. They'd be like, oh, stone season again. Like, oh, ginger ale saltines? That'll be $1,400 or whatever the fucking ER bill costs. So eventually like we stopped going to the hospital when I would have them because I would just recover on my own. But my junior year, I had one that was a little abnormal. I was used to having them right after I would wake up in the morning. That made sense because it was very related to my sleep. So I would wake up like early in the morning for school. I would have a seizure potentially. Then I would go about my day. And usually that's how it works. Even like this last one I had, like I was already awake, but it happened early in the morning. This one did not happen early in the morning. This one happened in the evening. It happened like, I think probably around like 5 or 6 p.m. Did just wake up from a nap. So like that makes sense. I had like just eaten dinner. I was on the computer. It was before I had a smartphone. So I was still on a fucking desktop, not even a laptop. I was sitting at the desktop computer and I started to feel strange. I wake up surrounded by like EMTs and I think firefighters. Like I said, like the whole gang showed up for one of these and I'm like, oh, gentlemen, please. There's only so much of me to go around. Get this slab of meat to the emergency room.
Side note to this part of the story, we were raising a pet squirrel at the time, which I'm pretty sure is illegal in the state of Massachusetts. But anyway, his name was Socks. When the EMTs and the firefighters walked in, they saw him scurrying around and they just kind of looked at my mom and they were like, yeah, we're just gonna ignore this.
The reason that my mom called an ambulance this time is because she didn't think I was breathing. They're doing more tests on me. My nurse like looks at the medication I'm on. She's like, oh, you're on Lamictal? Oh gosh, yeah, my daughter also took that for seizures and it made hers worse. And I was like, oh great. I love to hear that. That's so good. We voiced this concern to my neurologist at the time. He's essentially just like, ma'am, crazy woman, calm down. I man, listen to me. I man, listen. My degree says man. Oh, yeah, no, he's right. He man, we listen. Duh. He puts me on an additional medication because he's like, this medication will help stabilize this other medication that you're on. And I'm on these two medications and I look at my mom and I'm like, I wanna myself. And she's like, yeah, let's get you off of that. So I stopped taking that medication. And, you know, then I am talking to her and I'm just like, you know, I feel like right now, I don't really want to be on medications. I don't want to feel like a guinea pig anymore. I don't want to just be like thrown on medications. And then when I voice my concerns about, you know, said medications, like it's not really taken seriously. So I think I'm done for now. And she was fine with that. And for a while I was like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna handle it on my own. Like I kind of have an idea of like when they're gonna happen. At that point it was like every 6 months and I was kind of like, I can deal with that. Like I can deal with having like an episode every 6 months and just sort of dealing with it on my own. Like it seems like we've kind of gotten a hang of it at this point. And we just kind of did that for a little bit until my freshman year of college. It's always the freshman year. It's always when the universe is like, aw, are you starting this new chapter of your life? What if we fucked it? What if we fucked it all up? I start my freshman year of college. And I don't know why I did this, maybe because I am a fucking idiot, but I decided to take like really early classes, like all 9 a.m.s because I'm dumb. I think part of the reason why I decided to take 9 a.m.s was because I was a theater major. Don't look at me like that. I'm putting that degree to use. I'm using it, okay? I'm using it online every day. So shut up! I wanted to be available for any productions that were happening at night. Also, during my freshman year of college, I started doing background work for like films, like film and television. Like the first few months of college, I did background work on a movie called Unfinished Business and another one called The Finest Hours and another one called Good Kids. I was, you know, out very late at night, into the early hours of the morning for sometimes like 16-hour shoots. that's how long they need you on set sometimes. So I was out all night and getting like no sleep. And so my freshman year of college, I had a grand mal seizure every month of my first year of college. Grand mal seizures, which you may or may not have heard of, are like the ones that you would typically think of. So they're the big ones. That's what grand mal means. It's like big evil or like big bad. And that's actually like why they changed the name recently to tonic-clonic. It sounds less ominous, although it is big and bad. So, you know, they got us there. But I have grand mal seizures, which is like, yeah, like what you would think of. It's the passing out, the big convulsions, like the very showy seizures. Those are the ones that I have. Not everyone has those types of seizures. Like for some people, having seizures just looks like spacing out and having like moments of confusion. But yeah, for me, it's like, it's the aura that I mentioned before, then it's the convulsions, and then it's like the post-ictal phase. There's the convulsions that happen, which is like what everyone is most familiar with. They might be foaming at the mouth, their eyes might roll back into the back of their head. And then there's the post-ictal phase. The easiest way for me to explain all of this is your brain is a computer. So when you start to have the aura, that is like the error. That is like the malware almost. And this virus is now spreading through the computer. And then the computer is eventually going to like shut down and go through a reboot. And in post-ictal, your brain is in reboot. During that reboot, you have to relearn everything that is on that computer. So it's gonna take a few minutes for you to like understand what's going on. So in post-ictal, at least for me, you are like in your most primal state as a human being, which means I'm basically prey. I have to assume that every other creature surrounding me is a threat. Even like when I'm alone having them, it feels like there's an ominous presence like looming somewhere that I can't see it and it wants to hurt me. Like the seizure that I had the other day, I do remember like I was in the elevator trying to get back up to my apartment, but I didn't have my key with me. And I'm like pressing the button to try to get back to my floor and it's not going up and the doors keep opening. And I kept thinking that when the doors were like, anytime the doors would open, someone would walk in and it was going to be someone that like wanted to hurt me. One of the first seizures I ever had was when I was home alone with my sister, my younger sister, who's like 2 years younger than me. And bless her soul, bless her heart. She has had to deal with a lot. She's seen most of them. I had, just had a seizure. I thought she was going to kill me. She had already called my mom, who was like on her way home. I was trying to get away from her, so I ran into a wall. So just like full minor concussion, probably. Again, I don't understand what the fuck she's saying, so I'm like, this person's the enemy. This essentially child is dangerous to me. I have to get away from her. The only thing I can think of is I have to jump off this balcony. This balcony in my house, this second floor balcony. Gotta jump off of it and probably break my neck, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I get 1 foot over and she's like, no, let's not do that. So she pulls me literally off the ledge, and then she puts me in her bed and I pass out until my mom gets home, and then I think we did go to the hospital. It's just like this really heightened state of paranoia for me. and really heightened emotions. So like the more I would have them, I would kind of learn more about like what I would need in those moments. So I was like, hey, when this happens, please don't make eye contact with me after I wake up, because I assume that you're trying to hurt me, and the eye contact makes it feel more threatening. So they would like learn from that, and going forward they would just not look me in the eye, and they would just keep telling me that I had a seizure, until eventually I would start to like understand what they were saying, and I would be like, oh, I had a seizure. But like even when I'd have them alone, like sometimes like I would do weird things. One of the first ones that I had when I was alone, I woke up, I felt very scared. I was like, someone's probably after me. There was a pot of popcorn on the stove that I think my mom had left there from the night before. In my brain at the time, I saw it and I was like, this is necessary for survival. So I scooped a bunch of it in my hand and brought it back upstairs with me. And I like placed it on my dresser and was like, I need this to live. And I had a few pieces and I was like, I didn't want to eat it. First of all, I just chewed the fuck out of my tongue and in my mouth. I'm like, the last thing I need to be eating right now is popcorn. I do not need kernels in my mouth. But I did it because it was necessary for survival, and you gotta do what you gotta do. So I like had a few pieces. I was like, good, that should be good enough for now. And then I just kind of like went about whatever the fuck else I needed to do. And then I started to come to, and I was like, oh, I just had a seizure. Why the fuck is there popcorn on my dresser? I think I have like maybe like an example of like a text that I tried to send my mom once, where I was trying to tell her that I had a seizure, and then it just came out really weird. It did not make sense. But that's sort of what it's like to, have an aura and go through post-ictal. But yeah, like I had a grand mal seizure like every month my freshman year of college, and it was really rough to say the least. I would basically like recover from one, and as soon as I would like finish like fully recovering from that one, I would have another. It sucked. It was a really rough time in my life. I was like getting no work done. And you might be like wondering like what it means to recover from something like that. Like the seizure happens, it's over. So like what was I necessarily recovering from? One of the big things is like biting down on my tongue. I'm sure you've like heard of that before, but yeah, like the biting down on the tongue is pretty rough. I've never really like significantly injured my tongue, but like it hurts like a motherfucker, I'll tell you. It hurts, doesn't feel great. That being said, if you see someone having a seizure and you have that thought of like, oh, do I put something in their mouth? Do I put a wallet in their mouth to stop them from biting down on their tongue? No, don't do that. That's a horrible idea. It used to be like a thing that they would say like, oh, you should stick a wallet in their mouth. No, don't do that. Your wallet's full of germs. Don't put germs in another person's mouth. And the other thing is that like, when you are biting down during a seizure, like you are using the full strength of your jaw, and you don't want to be anywhere near another human being's mouth when they are clenching down with that much power. Anyway, it takes maybe like a few weeks, maybe like 2 to 3 weeks to fully recover from that. Even though this past seizure that I had wasn't as bad, I still bit down on my tongue, and it felt not great for a few days. It feels fine right now. Muscle soreness. You are, clenching your muscles and releasing them for, however long. You'll have like muscle soreness for a while after that. Potential like other additional injuries if like you fall, if you hit your head. Like I've had like black eyes before. I've had like bumps on my head. Obviously like this time around, like not too bad, but like yeah, like I have like some minor injuries from what happened to me the other day. At some point, when this was happening to me in college, maybe after like the fourth or fifth one, I woke up after having a seizure in my bathroom. I woke up like on the floor of my bathroom, and my mom was right next to me, and she was like waiting for me to kind of like regain my senses. And I was like, I can't do this anymore on my own. I need help. I was like, I need to find a person to help me deal with this, because it's just not something I am equipped to deal with by myself, which is like a perfectly okay thing to admit to yourself. And you shouldn't ever feel like you have to deal with any of your medical issues on your own. There are people that want to help you, and unfortunately sometimes you have to search a little harder to find the right people for you, but they do exist. And I was very lucky to find my next neurologist, who was just the best. She was incredible. I was also very lucky to live in Boston at the time, because Boston has some of the best hospitals and doctors in the world, honestly. You have Harvard and MIT right there. And a lot of those graduates, they graduate and they go to Mass General Hospital. My mom actually worked at Mass General Hospital. It was nice because I would like go to Mass General and my mom would be there, and we would meet up and we would go to like doctor's appointments that I would have. And yeah, I met my neurologist, and she was just like an incredible woman. She really listened to all of my thoughts and concerns. A lot of it about being like, I don't want to be on a medication that, makes me feel miserable. And like the first medication that she put me on, I had a really bad time on it. I'm also a singer, so I was singing these musical pieces where I would sing really high notes, and it would like give me like really massive headaches every time I would hit like a high note. It caused me a lot of pain, and I ended up in the ER one day because of it. And she just like immediately took me off that medication, like no questions asked. And like anytime something was just like not working, she would immediately adjust. She was just like really accommodating and clearly just wanted to like help me and understand what would make me feel better. And that's like why we stuck with her for as long as we possibly could. She did put me on a medication that mostly worked. It worked for like about 4-ish years. In between that time, we had done some like other tests. I stayed at the epilepsy monitoring unit for 10 days. Very shortly after my ex and I had a breakup, like a horrible breakup. I was so depressed, and so I'm like stuck in this epilepsy monitoring unit for a 10-day EEG. That's the thing with like all of the wires on my head, so they can like scan my brain. And for this test, like I had to stay there for the full 10 days in bed. Like you're not supposed to leave your bed for 10 days. The only time you're allowed to like get up is like if you like are like, I need to walk around right now. And then like a nurse would come into your room and like you could walk around your room, or like if you had to use the bathroom. So like I would like get up and use the bathroom. A nurse had to be there also for that. They don't have to watch you, but they have to like be by the door. Like you can't even fully close the door. So I had to do that for 10 days. They're basically trying to get you to have a seizure so that they can capture it and understand more about like what's going on with you. Because even still, like even after all these years, at that point I was 21. So I had started having them like right after I turned 15. To, by the time I was at the EMU, I was 21, going on 22 that fall. It was a long journey of like trying to figure out like exactly what was going on with me. She was the first person to actually formally diagnose me with epilepsy. 5 years after I had started having seizures, she is the first person to have like, this dog will not shut the fuck up. This is the loudest, like, fucking dog in my entire complex. Like, what the fuck is your problem that you have to be barking like this? Like, what have you got? What neurological disorders do you fucking have? It's almost like they heard me. Anyway, she was the first one to formally diagnose me with epilepsy. She was like, you know, yeah, you have epilepsy. We were like, okay, thank you. Because like everyone else was kind of dancing around it. They were like, a seizure disorder, ooh, like not really telling me what it was. She was the first person 5 years after I had started having seizures to tell me that I had epilepsy. But anyway, I was in the EMU, miserable. I wanted to die because I was going through this horrific breakup. Couldn't leave my bed. I couldn't have caffeine. That's how I learned I had a caffeine addiction at the time. I was having caffeine withdrawals, and the pounding in my head was atrocious. So I'm sleep deprived. My head is killing me. I later learned that my head is also killing me because the electrodes that they put on my head, I don't even remember like what exactly happened, but they were like, yeah, the method that we did this time was like kind of new, so you know we fucked up a little bit. They didn't say that exactly, probably for legal reasons. I'll show you the pictures. Like, not great. Those were on my skull the entire time I was in there, the whole 10 days. Just slowly creeping deeper into my flesh. Deeper into my flesh. I don't know why that felt Trumpy to me. The skin in my forehead was very hugely cut open. You wouldn't believe it. They were very nasty, these wounds. Very nasty. Anyway, I was fine. It was just, you know, some ugly cuts on my head for a few weeks. I was also so heartbroken at the time. I was like, I don't even care. Kill me. Honestly, they didn't really find anything helpful. So that was like a little bit of a waste of time because I didn't even end up having a seizure while I was in there. So like we just kind of were like, all right, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. I stayed on the medication that I was on. We were just like keeping an eye on it. Part of the reason I decided to like do the EMU stay, potentially the type of epilepsy that I have could be responsive to surgery. Like there were surgical options on the table. So like we were kind of exploring that route because I was like, you know, if I can just kind of like snip part of my brain and then not have to deal with having seizures for the rest of my life, that would be dope. It was never my like number one option, but it was something I was a little more curious about for a while. You know, maybe that's something I revisit in the future, but for now, like, no, I don't really want my hair to be fucked up. But for me, lobotomies are always on the table. So that was in 2018 that I stayed at the hospital for that EMU visit. And yeah, I just kind of like went back to what I was doing. I was continuing to take my medication, which didn't like stop all seizure activity, but I wasn't having grand mal seizures while I was on it. And that was like the thing that I cared about the most. I could kind of deal with everything else, but that was until 2019. I had another grand mal seizure like the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic fully kicked off. I had to do another EMU stay. So another 10 days at the epilepsy monitoring unit. A little bit more intense this time around. We were like really sleep depriving me. I was attached to some machine that if it would like sense that there was something kind of like wonky, it would start to beep, and like the nurses or whatever, like they would come in the room and they would do the whole question thing, you know, like asking me about the president. You know, Obama was not in office at this time, so I was in the clear. This time around, I felt way more equipped to deal with this situation. I made the room a lot more cozy. I had my shows ready to go. I wasn't sad over a boy. The doctor was super hot. Also, I forgot to mention, like, sometimes they would bring in therapy dogs, which was just like awesome. Every other night they would sleep deprive me so that they could like try to trigger a seizure, which sucked because they would, you know, keep me up until midnight and then they would wake me up around like 5 a.m. I took it upon myself to go a step further, where I was like essentially sleep depriving myself every night, which, you know, dangerous, but I was trying to get results. You know, one morning I'm waking up and I didn't have a seizure, so I was kind of like, all right, it's probably not gonna happen today. I get my nurse to come into the room so I can go and use the bathroom and get ready for the day. I'm in the bathroom, you know, my thing is beeping, but it kind of always beeps at certain times of the day. Like anytime I was eating, it was beeping, and then early in the morning it would be beeping. So, and she would like check on me. She's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel great. You guys can probably tell where this is going. I'm standing there. I'm holding my toothbrush in my hand. I start to feel some weirdness in my brain. I go, huh. And then I woke up in bed. And I'm like looking around my room like, I'm looking at my nurse like she's trying to kill me. And she fills me in. She's like, oh yeah, you had a seizure. I came into the bathroom. You were, you know, convulsing on the ground. 12 to 20 people come running into the room. They're all watching me do my thing. Hey. I finish convulsing, and then all of them lift me up and put me in bed. Very cool that the one time I had a seizure while I was in the hospital, they didn't get it on camera, but they did get recordings of it, like through my brain scans, because I had those freaking electrodes on my head. They didn't stab my brain this time, but they did get some results. That is how my neurologist found out the exact type of epilepsy that I have. I believe it's right temporal lobe epilepsy. It means it's just like in one part of my brain. I met a potential neurosurgeon while I was in the hospital. You know, he came and he talked to me. While we were in there, we switched my medication, and she put me on the medication that I take to this day, and that was a huge game changer for me. It's called Aptiom. It really had like a huge impact on my life. I have had seizures since I've been on it, but the only, you know, 2 times that I've had seizures while I've been on it were the first time I was living in New York. My health insurance at the time denied me coverage when I moved to New York, and they wouldn't cover that medication. So I was off of it for like a year while I was living in New York, and I had a seizure right before I moved to LA, and then I had a seizure this past week, but I had also forgotten to take it, so I don't really blame that on the medication. It's been working for me great the past almost 5 years. I have no complaints, I have no side effects. It's great. I don't see that neurologist anymore, obviously, because I moved out of Massachusetts, but my current neurologist is great. Came like recommended by like a friend of a friend. Like, I don't even know how long this video is gonna be, because this is just like a huge ramble. It's so much to like really put like a timeline together. Almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years in November since I had my first seizure that I'm aware of. You know, it's kind of a bummer that I had a seizure after, you know, 2 years of not having any activity. I wasn't doing the greatest job of taking care of myself, and that's something that I think any person with chronic illness needs to stay on top of. Sometimes it's hard. Like, it can be really discouraging when you're dealing with a chronic illness or I don't know, like any sort of like health problems. It's a constant battle. It's also like really weird, especially if it's something that hasn't been following you your whole life, and you've like had to like abruptly make changes in your life to deal with this thing. There are aspects of this that are really frustrating. Healthcare is expensive. ER trips, that's expensive. Also, the medication that I'm on. I just got notified recently that they just came out with a generic version of it. So I've been on the name brand version of it since I got put on it. It's a fucking designer medication. It's like $1,400 out of pocket a month to pay for that medication. That's why I wasn't on it when I was living in New York, because I was like, I can't afford. I was like, I might as well just fucking raw dog it for as long as I can and see if I can just deal with it on my own, because I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying $1,400 for a 30-day supply of pills. But I'm like, that's life-saving medication. That's crazy. You know, I moved to LA and I got put back on the medication, and my insurance was like, okay, look, fine, we'll cover it. Yeah, I remember I went to go pick up the meds from my pharmacy, and my pharmacist, it was like a 90-day supply. My pharmacist is like, you know, getting the bag ready for me. He looks at the bag, he goes, whoa, if you didn't have insurance, you would have had to pay $4,000 today. $4,000. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I pay a lot for like a premium healthcare plan so that they for sure will cover this medication that I'm on. And I'm like, and I'm paying for health insurance out of pocket because I'm self-employed. The healthcare aspect of things is very frustrating and disheartening sometimes when it comes to, you know, being a chronically ill person or not, you know, it's just frustrating in general. I think it's important to talk about these things. There are a lot of people in the world that are going through very similar journeys that I am right now. It's very challenging to deal with something that incapacitates you in some sort of way, that alters your day-to-day life. And a lot of times it does feel like this looming presence in my life. Even before I had the seizure, I was like, you know, it's been 2 years and I just sort of celebrated 2 years seizure-free. You know, how long is this gonna last? And I talked on my friend Greg's podcast about, like, should we even get our hopes up? Should we celebrate these achievements when it feels inevitable that it's just going to, like, happen again at some point? And, you know, my response to that was just like, I love celebrating. Give me something to celebrate and I'll celebrate it. So I'll always celebrate any sort of achievements I have with my health. It can be discouraging, and I let myself feel bad about it for, you know, maybe like an hour or two. I let myself get like a little sad about it. And then I was like, okay, I'm fine. This was like a little wake-up call for me. It was just a reminder that I have to take better care of myself. I think we all need to do that. It's very easy to drop the ball in that regard when we get swept up in whatever things life throws at us. But you know, this is like your freaking life, man. You gotta take care of yourself. And I'm saying that to me too. Like, we gotta take care of ourselves. There's only this life, okay? Seize the day. Not literally, figuratively, God. But truly, take care of yourselves. Invest in your healthcare. But anyway, I just wanted this to be a video where you could learn a little bit more about me, learn a little bit more about epilepsy, and just kind of like this thing that I've dealt with for half my life. And if you stuck around until the end, thank you so much for watching, especially if you have no skin in the epilepsy game. Thank you. Thank you for learning and educating yourself, and I don't know, maybe you just wanted to hear me talk, but like, thank you. If you liked today's video, let me know. It was a little bit different than the other videos that I posted, so I'm curious if you want more videos where I'm doing like story times and like telling you a little bit more about my life, or if you're like, shut the fuck up. But don't worry, there is more commentary stuff coming soon. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.